I'm dishing with musicians. I'm dishing with musicians. A talk show about history. I'm dishing with musicians. I'm dishing with musicians. Let's take a stroll down music history.
Yes, we've made it. This episode, folks, has gone through so many ups and downs. And I'm really counting my lucky stars right now. I know we're live. There's one person joining us, so I know it's working. Now there's more. Organically share this, folks. This is going to be the greatest time tonight. I'm so excited. Welcome to Dishin with Musicians, sponsored by the Nebraska Performing Arts Hall of Fame, KZUM, Red Rebel Media, and the Zubar is also showing it on their page. Hello, Zubar people. We are zooming out to a ton of different places, and man, oh man, I'm excited about this guy. We're like slippery. I keep saying to folks, we're like slippery fish. That's it. You know, we're just busy, folks, and we've been trying to do this for a long time, and it just never worked out. And tonight, it's totally working out. Last time we tried to do this, Facebook decided that I was a vigilante and somehow blocked me from all ventricles of streaming possible, and it was bizarro. I got banned from Facebook somehow, and I still to this day don't, and they don't know why. I've talked to multiple people over there. They were like, well, you must have done something, and I'm sure I did. I'm kind of a rascal like that. So anyway, without further ado, here he is, folks. My pal and longtime fellow friend and musician, Benji Kushner, in the house. Oh my gosh, man, what's up?
Hey!
Good to see you.
I think it might have been Russian collusion.
Yes, and I've had people on this show before, and funny enough, a guy named Daniel Donato, one of the great guitar players of Nashville right now, currently. I had him on a stream recently, and he said the same thing. He's like, Russian collusion's watching you. And now I'm like super freaked out. Oh my God, it takes me back to my like paranoia of college days. Serious drug use paranoia. Anyway, You're here. This is great. You're one of my favorite people of all time. And I personally don't need to, I don't need to say it. People know that I'm a huge fan of yours already, not only musically, but your personality, your friendship means a lot to me. And what you've done with our community means a lot to me. You're just an all-around great guy. You're very, very well cherished in this community, I will say that.
That's very sweet of you to say. And you know I have respect and admiration and friendship with you as well. I know when I get up with you once in a while here or there. I think it was with the Bottle Pops last time. We just had a riot.
Oh, man. Always love to see you out in the crowd. And it's just one of those things where like, get up here, man. You're one of those guys that can just play whatever. And, your guitar playing is amazing. And, it goes back to me. I'm so excited to sort of peel back the onions of my history and what I know about you. And going back, way back to when I worked at Knickerbocker's. As a bartender and a sound guy, and you owning a little shop on the flip side on 9th Street right there. You owned the pawn shop, Royal Pawn. Yeah. So and man, oh my. So I don't know where to start. This is one of these things where we could let the crowd dictate. We could just let the energy dictate. But I know we've got a ton to talk about. But let's do something awesome for the folks that might not know about you. Let's take it back to your family settling in Lincoln. Now, where it all began. Let's talk about that.
Sure. I'll try to sort of sum it up briefly, but my grandfather on my dad's side had, I think, a brother here, maybe an uncle. Before World War I, he came over here, and he came to Lincoln, and he got a job right away at Pepperberg's cigar factory, rolling cigars. And
oh, wow, cool.
I think about $100 after a year, and he left on very good terms to start a feed store, which then became a grocery store as well. And then he just continued to build on that. And on my mom's side, And so he had his whole family here. My dad grew up, born and raised here. And my mom's side, she came from New York City. Her father had saved up and worked super hard, and he came over here about the same time, about 1914.
Wow.
He was a little younger, and he saved up to open a little restaurant because he loved to cook on the boardwalk in Rockaway Beach. And before he could get insurance, it burnt to the ground. Something happened, I don't know, but he lost everything. So, and it was like 1932. So the Depression was hitting horribly hard. And so he took his 2 kids in a Model A truck and moved to Missouri Valley, to where his sister lived. And then they went from Missouri Valley to Council Bluffs in Omaha, and that's how my mom and dad met. So yeah, family goes back about that far, about 10 years.
That's incredible. I didn't realize that, but my family had a grocery store in Fremont, Nebraska.
Nice.
Yeah, and so it was kind of the same, the Mercantile, the Semrad Brothers Mercantile is what it was called.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it was we're cut from the same, cloth of selling groceries, it sounds like, which is wild.
Yeah. And, my parents loved music. So, I mean, really, if you want to start there, it's just as simple as having a family. Not only my parents, but my siblings loved to sing. And, I was exposed to everything from folk records to classical records to rock and roll records from my earliest time. So I just loved music. So, I think a lot of my inspiration came from just driving in the car on a trip and singing harmonies and listening to my siblings sing. And so, yeah.
We've talked a little bit about that as well, like some of your favorite records that you used to spin as a kid, and trying to pick out the guitar parts. You and I have had a conversation about that before, about how the lineage of guitar players, like for example, my father, Mike Sr., him learning a guitar part back in the 50s / late 50s, 60s era. They had to listen to records. There was no Spotify, YouTube where you could pause it and slow it down. I mean, it was just wearing out the needle,
Yeah.
And so, and you talked to me a little bit about that too, how you're just like, used to spin records like crazy.
I did. We had an old hi-fi in the living room, and the living room was like this fancy room that we actually never used. So it like, as I grew up, it became my music room. That's where the piano was. No one hardly ever went in there. So I just had this room that I could occupy. But actually, first for me, it was piano completely. I just
really?
Yeah, I didn't play any guitar. We had a little K, but it didn't play very well. So I didn't really play it at all. But I love to plink around on the piano, and I figured out over the years quite a bit. My mom's like, you should really take lessons, and my friend took lessons and she hated it. So I was like, I don't want to, and I wish I would have. Yeah. But I would sound things out, everything from Cacciatore and Saber Dance to, Yellow Submarine. I loved the British rock bands that my sisters listened to. I just thought that stuff was really cool, and it evolved from there. But I did love that stuff in the 60s when I was just a tiny kid. And so the piano was the main thing. I'd spend hours on it. And I still love to play it, but I don't have one at home. But I write sometimes on piano. Then with guitar, I was just really bored. My best friend moved away. We did everything together for years. And when he moved away, I kind of went into a depression because it was just such a hole in my life. And she said, why don't you try taking some guitar lessons? So I did, and they didn't really take. I wasn't really into it. The lesson plan was, it kind of bored me. I really wanted to play drums. So I got a snare drum. It was one of those Vista Light blue snare drums, Ludwig.
Oh yeah, those are sweet.
From Sound City, and I really wanted to do that. But just the rigors of learning technique just on a snare also didn't really take. I didn't really take to it. I wanted to play a kid. So then I started playing my sister's guitar when I was on a trip to visit her. My siblings are 9, 12, and 14 years older than I.
Oh, older than you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm the little baby. But I just really took to her acoustic all of a sudden. And I could figure things out like Band on the Run, I remember was one of them. I really wanted to go down, 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 down.
Yes.
And so I started figuring stuff out just by ear, and then I wanted to take lessons again. And the teacher that I had this time was just like, for me, it was just right. He said, what do you want to learn? What songs do you want to play? And then he'd work on technique through the songs. But, you know, I learned Sweet Home Alabama, Stairway to Heaven. Gosh, what else? I don't know. Riding the Storm Out, probably. I can't recall. Those three come to mind. But some finger style. So then, I just, after maybe a year and a half or 2 years with Bob Popek, he was my wonderful first like real teacher that I latched onto.
Wow.
And I love him for it. But then I decided I wanted to study I wanted to get into jazz. Again, my siblings and my parents would do the coolest things. They would take me to see Joe Pass. They would take me to see Herb Ellis. They would my siblings like turn me on to reggae. Like I think the first record of reggae was Peter Tosh.
Wow.
What's it called? Come on, it's like one of my favorite records. Anyway, I got exposed to a lot of different styles. Blues, my brother bought me blues records, B.B. King Live at the Regal, and they would get me records, and it just sort of inspired me to go the direction of learning more roots music, and I wanted to study jazz. So, but really, essentially, I latched onto the guitar, I think, because it was just the right time, and my buddy, who I missed so much, was gone. So the guitar kind of became, I've always said the guitar kind of became my new best friend.
Wow.
And it also kept me out of a lot of trouble because some of the things that were going on with my peer group that I was hanging out with were pretty crazy times. And
yeah,
I think it really kept me on a good path, if that makes sense.
Wow. So Bob Popek was the first teacher that kind of hit home.
Yeah.
What guitar were you playing? I'm curious at that time.
Right. So I traded in that snare drum at Dietz. I got the snare drum at Sound City, and then I traded it in at Dietz for an Alvarez 5047, sort of a 000, smaller body style acoustic guitar, and I loved that thing. And then later, I was really getting into. I just played all the time, and so I took a chunk of most of my bar mitzvah money, and I think I was 15, and I got a really cool guitar called a Gurian, Michael Gurian, Gurian. They had him at Thompson Music, and It was like a super fine, solid wood instrument with Brazilian rosewood, or no, I think Indian rosewood sides and back, and a solid spruce top.
Check it out. That's a 5047.
Yeah, it has those screws on the bridge, on the saddle.
Yeah, that's right.
Heck yeah. Yep.
That's it.
And
that's a nice binding. That's a nice bound guitar.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I love that thing.
Herringbone. Cool.
Yep. I took it to camp with me, and I like when I was 14, I went to camp all summer. First, like a music camp called Evergreen out in Colorado, Colorado. And I wrote, so I'd go play to the trees and imagine that the wind going through them was like them responding. And I still have those. I still know those songs that I wrote when I was just like a year into it. It
was a songwriting camp.
No, it was. I mean, I guess it could be, but mostly it was like a swing choir camp.
Okay.
That was jazz choir stuff.
Sure.
Voice oriented. But I brought my guitar and then I took it to Wisconsin when I went to camp there and wrote songs in the woods. And
wow.
It was a pretty special time.
So you had like ethereal spirit speaking to you early on, I'd say.
I sure wanted to, and I sure imagined that I did and felt like I did.
Yeah. Man, that is awesome. I'm going to put this up real quick because I can't forget to give a shout out to the Hall of Fame, Nebraska Performing Arts Hall of Fame real quick. I'm with Benji Kushner here, having a great time talking about history, his personal history into Nebraska music history. So if you could help us out, we want to bring more content like this to you people. So even if you can throw $5 or $10 to the Hall of Fame through Venmo or PayPal, please do so. And again, thanks to all of our sponsors. This is super fun. Thank you so much. So that puts us at what age? We're at like 14, 15?
I studied from Leroy Critchard here in town, and I really liked him. He was a very soft-spoken but brilliant guitar player, and he taught me a lot. I still have his sheets that he would write out. But then he moved to Portland. He wanted to go to Portland, Oregon for music reasons, and so I had to go to Omaha and study with John Novak. Like every 2 weeks, I'd go up to Omaha and take a lesson. And then I went to college at the University of Wisconsin, and I played in at first the second jazz ensemble, and then the next year I played in the top tier band or whatever. I had a real good audition because I had figured out a nice voicing of "Here's That Rainy Day," which is a song I've always loved. And Les Thimmig, the director, he was like, "Yeah, that sounds good. You can be in the first band." But I mean, I wasn't as technically proficient as a lot of those players were in that band. And the first day, the first song, he calls out, "All right, giant steps. We'll have Jim, Joey, and Benjamin. You take that third solo." Dun, dun, dun. And I'm just like, oh my God. It was such a hazing. But, I had enough. I mean, I was embarrassed because I couldn't play that. He just thought maybe I could because I guess my audition was good, but I couldn't. And he was cool. Then he had now and then he'd have like a kind of a more R&B tune in the mix, like Roof Garden. Does anyone want to go dancing? And he'd give me like features on that more R&B kind of kind of soul jazz stuff, and then that was great. But the players in that band were inspiring, just some incredible players. In fact, when I toured with the Millions in Europe in '94, who do I come across playing drums for Sheryl Crow, who we were opening for, but Wally Ingram, who I played with in jazz band in Wisconsin.
Crazy.
He was in Timbuk3, and then he got this gig with her, and he played with David Lindley. But when we saw each other, we were just like, dude!
Oh, wow.
Such a fun time.
Well, I think that is a nice formation for a young player to be thrown in the fire like that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
It kind of makes you play better when you're around players that are better than you. It does for me anyway.
Yeah.
I always get elevated when I sat in with Danny Dreyer, who played with Dr. John and Aretha Franklin, and he just gave me a shot. He got me up on stage and was very nice to me. Not that I even had proved myself to him, so he had no idea. But I felt that night that I was lifted. I was like playing stuff that I'd never been able to play, like psychologically, subconsciously, just unlocked.
It's very good for. It's like playing tennis with someone that's better than you. You get better.
Yeah, you just get better. Yeah, it's so weird. It's like, I don't know. There was something about that that made me play better, subconsciously. I don't know.
I've always wished I would have gotten into the black music ensemble with Richard Davis, that phenomenal jazz bassist. He taught at Wisconsin, and he had a group called the Black Music Ensemble, and I just went into the jazz ensemble not really knowing as a freshman, and that's kind of just where I stayed. But that Black Music Ensemble was more, I think, maybe a little more experimental and a little more outside just traditional big band jazz. And of course, Richard Davis. I mean, we had killer bass players. In fact, one of his students taught here at UNL for a while, Jeff Eccles, who I played with in jazz band. But ultimately, and I was studying some jazz up there, but what really happened in Madison is I started really getting into these venues like Club de Washington and the Havana Club. This is where like blues and R&B players were at, and it blew my mind. I'd never been able to go to the zoo. I was just too young. I was 17 I was 17 when I graduated Southeast High School. So I snuck in there once at the end of a show and met Sean Benjamin, and that was great. He was at the end of the bar towards the stage, and my friend's older sister wanted me to meet him, and she introduces me and just goes, "Got an amp?" And I'm like, it's loud in there. I go, "I'm sorry, what'd you say, Mr. Benjamin?" He goes, "Got an amp?" "Oh, yeah, I have an amp." He goes, "All right, bring it over, we'll jam." He was just that kind to a strange kid that he just met.
Wow, that's incredible, man.
It was in Madison that I heard people like Paul Black and the Flip Kings incredible guitar player with incredible tone, really crazy slide work. He'd play through like 2 blackface Fenders stacked on top of each other. And it was just a huge inspiration to me. And also a band called Honor Among Thieves, Paul Filipowicz. I still see him when we go up there. He was actually the first person I saw, but it really made me lean kind of away from deeper jazz. And I just really, and especially with my skill set, I never got to be a real truly capable, jazz player, but it definitely influenced me. Sure, and then to fall in love with these roots styles of music. I grew up listening to bluegrass and Doc Watson and all that too. So flat picking always for me, all that stuff. But I think that some of the best lessons I had were just probably hundreds of shows that I went to when I lived up there for 6 years. So then and of course rock and roll was always a part of me. I mean, I loved rock and roll.
I'm kind of surprised to hear that Madison had such a influential music scene. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah, I did. Unfortunately, these clubs are gone. It was such a cool club. It had like a real raucous gay bar downstairs called Rod's.
No way.
And then it was an old train station hotel, and it was real old, right by the tracks.
That was my college nickname. Yeah, that was my college nickname. Rods.
And it just, these clubs were they were somewhat zoo-like. They were just real stripped down.
Really?
And I would go see Paul Seabar and the Milwaukeeans playing.
Oh, I love Paul Seabar. Yeah, he's great. He played at the Old Town School a lot, where I taught in Chicago. He played there a lot, the Old Town School of Folk Music.
Right on. Killer. But mostly I just played solo gigs at that time. I just play on State Street, or, I remember I played at the Broome Street Theater, and then I had a bunch of, like 6 young women all at once just like wanted to take guitar lessons, and I wanted to teach. So it was a great way to make a little money at, a time like that. You really need to have some money in your pocket. So I taught and I played solo shows. It was only when I came back to Lincoln in '89 that I immediately started playing in combos, like electric and in clubs. And once I started doing that, it was all over. I loved it. Still do.
So 1989, that's incredible. So I'm trying to think of Lincoln at that time. So Zubar was obviously killing it at that point.
Yeah.
Bringing in some great names.
I think the first band I played in was, I was like one of 2 guitarists in this band called Night Heat.
Oh, wow.
And we had Gary Williams on drums. You might know, he did sound at the zoo too, and he's a good drummer. He's been around for Gary played drums, and it was like a 5 or 6 piece, and it was R&B and blues. And our first show was December 29th, 1989. And after we played, this band that I had not yet seen got up and played, and I was like, wow, we got a good turnout, and it keeps getting fuller. Well, it was for the next band. It was Billy Bacon and the Forbidden Pigs.
Oh, wow, man, no way.
I'm like, oh, now I see why all these people are here.
yeah, man, that's crazy. So that was the very first show? That was the very first show you played there?
In Lincoln, at the Zoo Bar, December 29th, 89. Wow. And then, that band sort of evolved into a band called the Pedestrians, and then the Land Sharks with Fred Reddick and Tom Changstrom on bass, Fred Reddick on drums, and then ultimately kind of morphed into a band called Urban Roots, which was Joe Gurley on drums, who we shared with Not All There, Larry Beamer's band, with Sean Benjamin. And, it was Dave Mazer on electric guitar, me on two guitarists, and we really had a lot of fun. Dave Wagner played bass.
Shaky, yeah, man.
Yep, Wags, and we did everything, like from, Dave Mazer was really a good teacher at that time for me, because he could play shuffle, and Albert King, Freddie King. I mean, he had it down. He's a fantastic guitar player, and I learned a lot more about how to put my guitar across by just watching and listening to him. I mean, I had skills, but there's just other things you can only learn by a good player. They can't be taught to you. You have to just see it and absorb it, hear it and feel it and do it. So he was a huge influence for me. And after Urban Roots, it was the Millions then, which was a real wild situation because I was playing at like the zoo, but we didn't get Fridays or Saturdays. You know, at best we'd get like a Thursday, and that was exciting. But we were a good band. We played In Memory of Elizabeth Reed quite well, and that's a pretty challenging Allman Brothers tune. We kind of ran the gamut of rock and blues, but we also played a lot at the Isles, which I really liked playing out there. And, you know, I got to know Harry Dingman and Lori Allison first. They'd just come into the pawn shop, especially Harry. And he invited me over to play once at his house, which is a really funny story because that's when I first saw Karmen, my sweetheart.
No
That's
way.
another story. She was painting his bathroom.
Oh, no way.
I just met her and was like, oh, hi, okay. And then we went and jammed. But they started coming to our shows, and they really liked my playing, and they wanted something different on their second record. They wanted a different type of lead guitar, maybe more linear. Of course, Harry is a brilliant player, texturalist. I don't even know how to do half the stuff that he does, but a different sound. And they kind of settled on me. So they, out of the blue, they just said, you know, would you consider coming in and playing a lead on one song, Indians and Drums? We're just looking for something like that. So I went and rehearsed with them, and they were like, that went great. What would you do on this song? So I was playing along with another song. And then, so that was all, you know, that was what it was going to be. And I was stoked. I was really excited because, you know, they had a really nice budget from Germany for the second record. And, you know, suddenly I'm going to the studio. The first studio we went to was Star Tracker. And then they're calling me when I'm at work in the pawn shop. This was the first pawn shop where Recycled Sounds was. It's called King Dollar Pawn after my dad's grocery store. But they're calling down there and they're like, hey, Benji, this is Harry. Is there any chance you might slip out and come out to the studio? There's this pizzicato part that I'm just not getting the way I want it. And I thought maybe you could try it on this song called Manic and Slipping. Oh, wow. So I went out there, and then I also was excited to kind of help Marty. He was like, I'm running out of ideas on these bass lines. So I remember telling him, well, this song just cycles through these changes, and you could build it towards the end by doing that McCartney line from Rain, kind of steal it. Ding, 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 ding. And he's like, that's great. And then they were just like, you want to just be in the band? And I was thrilled.
That's the best. That is the coolest story ever. And at that time, they had a major record deal, right?
Yeah, with Portugal Overseas. Actually, initially it was with a label called Dream Circle, but it got picked up by Polydor, a German label owned by Oli Bergfleth. And, and we had significant budget. In fact, we then went to Studio Q downtown and recorded quite a bit there, a lot there. And when we brought a guy in to mix that they chose, Lee Popa, he had worked with Ministry and Killing Joke, and he was from Chicago. He stayed at my house and we became friends. Guess what? I just found out, and we just became friends again, because he is in charge of the Japan wing of our Color Red label service.
Oh, no kidding.
And when Josh Hoyer said, I got to call this guy Lee Popa, I'm just like, wait, what? And so now we're just reminiscing about those times way back.
Wow, that's incredible. So did you jump? So you went on the road with them? Touring at that time?
It was crazy. Thankfully, my fiance, she was very good in the pawn shop, and she liked very much working there. So, I mean, she really allowed me to start doing that, because as soon as they said you want to be in the band, we played at Sharky's up in Omaha, which was on like 88th and Cass. Mm-hmm. And we're playing like an outdoor festival, double headlining with 311. Oh, and I've just finished, playing usually like the Isles or Jack's or Better, or of course the Zoo. But it was just like, oh, okay. So and they were funny. They were like, hey, you can untuck your T-shirt. Just untuck that thing.
Oh my God, dude!
Just untuck it.
That's hilarious. You
I was a tucked in kind of a guy, and this is 1990. This is 93, and they're like, you can untuck that. Just
probably could be grunge out a little, grunge out just a little.
We had so much fun though. I mean, I don't even know. Like, I'm afraid I'm going to get stuck in each period too long to tell a lot, because I could just go on and on about those times.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure you could, man. That's it. Well, let's break it down this way. Let's do like one favorite memory from each era, because like really, each band you're in is like a whole different thing that we could talk forever about. In the millions, what was one major memory that sticks out?
I would have to say, well, first of all, just working with those people, those musicians, those artists. I mean, that was such an honor. But I think going to Europe and opening for Sheryl Crow on her that summer that she went to #1 with that Tuesday Night Music Club record, I went out and bought it as soon as I was told we're going to Europe and it's going to be with her and her band. And I just loved the record. That was incredibly exciting. And to make friendships with those people, and also go to Europe for the first time and be playing Paradiso in Amsterdam, this legendary old church that's a rock club, and other places like that, the Vuurriet in Belgium, in Ghent. It was mind-boggling.
That was the big breakout record, like All I Want to Do from Sheryl Crow, and all that. They just nonstop played that on the radio like crazy.
She won like 5 Grammys that year, I think.
Wow. So you guys were teamed up and opening for her like collectively as a group, 2-band?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it worked, but Oli got us onto this tour, and we weren't even billed on the posters. It just said Sheryl Crow. But Lori spoke some German, for instance, so she would speak a little in German and say, that we were Die Millionen from Lincoln, Nebraska, or whatever. And people, and we played well, and people loved it. I mean, to not even be on the billing and go backstage after our specific opening set and have them, cheering and clapping in rhythm, and Sheryl Crow looks at me and goes, "Better get back out there." Encores, for an unbilled Lincoln band.
Wow,
that was extremely gratifying.
That's huge. Wow, man. So then let's move to the next click. Now this might be, correct me if I'm wrong. So let's see, this would have been like 96, 97. So I might be jumping around a little bit. But my first experience with Benji Kushner was watching a band called the Self-Righteous Brothers. Now, and a lot of people love the Self-Righteous Brothers, but so many, unfortunately, have no idea of the magic of the live performance. When I saw you guys play, now granted, I was just out of high school in 95. Then I went right into the performing arts college because my goal, subconsciously, I didn't even know it until I saw you guys. I realized that that's what I wanted to do. That is the kind of show that I want to put on, where it's about the spectacle, it's about the music, and it's about the content, and the crowd just flipping out. Like, I saw that show with a guy, my best friend Brian Lucas, and Jen and Patty, who brought us to a show, and it just killed me. Just killed me. And we ended up, luckily, going to an after-hours party, and the band was there. and that was the first time we met. And I guarantee you probably don't remember it because it was chaos. It was totally insane. Of course, it was a post-show party and people were having fun. But I just remember thinking like that band is like untouchable, just incredible.
Well, Mike Keeling was in the Millions after Marty Amsler left the band. And so I was a big proponent for Mike Keeling. I spoke up when we needed to find a bass player, and I said, Mike Keeling is the guy. I think he kind of felt tit for tat. He's like, well, you want to join our band? Our first 10 songs have to have the words candle knob and mustard trowel in them. Here, come to a rehearsal. And I'm just like, what is it? I didn't even know. I had only seen Mike and Brian.
Wait a minute, back up a second. The first, what did you say? The 10 songs have to, who said that, Mike or the band?
When Mike and Brian,
Yeah.
Mike Keeling and Brian Johnson first started getting together, they would just have some drinks and write some songs on a Casio, a little Casio, just having a two-person party. So their first set of songs always had the words candle knob and mustard trowel in them. And I had only seen them once at an open stage at Duffy's when I played a little and they played. I just didn't know. I didn't know what I was getting into. But once we started to rehearse, I was just like, well, these songs they're of course, some of them quite ridiculous, but musically they were really stimulating and interesting. Brian Johnson's a very interesting songwriter. So, and then I got to sort of mix into the arranging and stuff like that. And we just gelled. So they added me into that band. And I still didn't know what I was getting into. That first show we played at Duffy's was absolute bedlam. We wore, at that point we didn't have the soiled tuxedos yet, but we just wore crazy clothes. We drank a bottle of scotch. You know, we claimed to be we are from Scotland, as you know. And, you know, there was just wild drinking even before the show. By the time we get on the show, we had like security, and I had no idea. This just hit me in the face. I'm playing these songs I learned, and it's bedlam. Women are throwing their bras and underwear up at us.
Chaos.
And just loving it. Chaos.
And that was what I experienced. It was like nothing. It was just outrageous.
Mike and Brian at that first show rammed heads while they were singing, and Mike was just bleeding from his nose. So he went out that little back door that used to be, by the stage in Duffy's when the stage was on Oak Street side.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, we're sunk. We're done. We just lost one of our frontmen. And he's out there trying to get it to stop. And Brian Johnson, or I should say Mr. Righteous, is just like, let's go. Let's keep playing. Because he knows all the words. So he just did all the parts. And we just kept rolling. And just the reaction of people and the fun and the music and like the ability to put on such a crazy show, even when people ram heads. It's like a football game. I'm like, I am in this all the way.
Yeah, that was your first experience, man.
Yeah, on Valentine's Day, 1995.
Oh my! So I caught you guys a year or two later, where you were probably well polished, and at that point it was bedlam like you described, but it was more. To me, it was a show. It was like a well-oiled machine, to where it was like choreographed. It was the dance moves were choreographed. The moments were just nonchalant and beautiful that Mike Keeling and Brian would just pull out. It was like they weren't even thinking about it. They just did it. Yeah,
it was sensational. And their comments, their banter in between songs, sometimes they would make me laugh so hard I couldn't start a song. I'm not kidding. I would just
my God.
Destroyed.
Wow, man. What a joy. What an absolute. And can I ask, just from a historical standpoint, was there ever like talk of like albums coming out, or was there ever interest in like from labels, like, because the band itself was killer. I'm just amazed that it didn't blossom into something larger.
I worked pretty hard on that. Mainly, we wanted booking support. We wanted a booking agency, and I think the best. Well, we had Mark Winan out of Kearney, but we wanted something more national. And I was really working hard on Hello booking out of Twin Cities. And I really enjoyed my whole experience getting to meet with them and talk with them. And they came to see us at Lee's in Minneapolis. But I think ultimately, people just didn't. I mean, in the industry, they just didn't know what to do with us. I think they should have just taken a chance on us, because we could have just rolled.
100%.
But I think we were just kind of hard to. It was hard for them to see how to sort of market or package us or brand us or whatever. I'm glad, actually. I'm fine with that. I think that's kind of cool.
And I was in a band called Haywood Yards that was bluegrass punk rock, and so that was kind of on the fringe. This would have been like way before Mumford and Sons and all that. And a guy named Garth Fundis, who discovered Garbage and Garth Brooks, Trisha Yearwood, big name in the industry. I sent my stuff to him, and because my dad had a connection, they played in the same band together. He said to me, "I just don't understand it. I don't know how to market it." Same thing as that you just said. I just don't know how to sell it. And lo and behold, like 2 years later, Mumford and Son hits, and it's like rock and bluegrass just got together, and that's exactly our sound. It's just timing, and sometimes that's okay. It just will forever live in this bubble of memories that's just beautiful. That's crazy.
I remember they said after the show, I was kind of surprised they took so much of their clothing off. And we were just like, we're definitely not probably going to match up well if that's
what you're saying about this band, because at the end of the night, we may end up in our underwear, if not totally naked. And that's how we roll.
Once we all ended up totally naked for a case of beer.
Wow.
Thrown up onto the stage.
Oh my God.
That was pretty nuts.
It does not surprise me one bit. It doesn't surprise me at all. I'm telling you, that was so that takes us to, you tell me, because I don't want to miss anything.
Real quick aside, I decided to move to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, because I had made friends with the guy who used to come through town, and he would just buy a lot of vintage or cool gear, mostly vintage gear, at my pawn shop, and he loved the prices because he's going to go out there to LA. Prices were different out there, and he really liked my style, so he hired me to manage this huge, beautiful, killer rock and roll shop in LA. And I took him up on it, and it was an amazing experience. So I moved to LA in April of '96, and the hours were great. I met so many interesting musicians, and I learned so much about gear. It was his shop was just packed with gear. Pedals, just massive numbers of pedals. I learned so much about gear, and I did play out there. I'm my co-manager at this shop is called Black Market Music on North La Cienega Boulevard between Santa Monica and Melrose, sort of in that Iraqi rug district. A lot of rug shops, but a huge killer store, and how fun to manage it with a guy named Damon Fox, who just is a total LA, born and raised in Hollywood, and knew everybody, and was super kind to me, as he is to everyone. Very talented. Michael Lockwood worked there. He's now the father of Elvis's twin grandkids. That's hard to say. He's the father of Elvis's twin grandchildren.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
And he was like the music director for a lot of well-known people. I think he worked with Amy Mann. And,
she's great. I love her.
Just all kinds of talent that people that were working in the shop were just hyper talented, and I got to meet and become friends with them. So, but then my Elisa, my wife, mother of my daughter Marina, we got pregnant, so that kind of changes things at that point. And I came back to Lincoln and took over the pawn shop. My dad wanted to retire. Just seemed like a better plan than a one-bedroom in Hollywood. But I really loved it out there. Marina was born out there, but then we came back. So then I joined the Self-Righteous Brothers again back in Lincoln, and that's probably when maybe you saw us.
Yeah. That's probably. So did because there was two guitar players. Was it always two guitar players, or was it one guitar player before LA?
No, it was one guitar player before I joined. So up until February of '95, it was Alan Weber, or I should say Huggy McNugget. Is that right? I haven't thought of their names for that. No, Ronnie McDonald. I'm sorry, Ronnie McDonald.
Ronnie McDonald. And Alan Weber's one of my favorite people too. He's incredible. Great guy.
Oh, he was so he played alone guitar with them, and then when they added me, there was him and I. And I loved, we're buds. We had so much fun playing together.
Yeah, I bet.
And real different styles. So that's what you want. It's like, what do you hear when you hear the band Television?
Yeah.
You hear totally different guitar styles.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Man, that's an incredible record. I just love that record. But wow, incredible stuff.
And I got to, they said, you got to think of a name. So I came up with, I was driving to work one morning. All of this is happening just like that. And I said, well, if it's got to be an MC name, how about Trendy McFadden? Like,
no way, that was your name?
Like a fad.
That's killer.
Trendy McFadden.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. I love it. You're great. You're great at coming up with names. We do know that. You and I have had great epic nights of thinking of band names because we both wear Ray-Bans.
Yes.
The band we came up with if and when, which we should at some point start a band called the Wayfarers, which I thought which is a brand of version of Ray-Bans.
Except, remember, the smaller ones are called New Wayfarers.
The New Wayfarers. That's right. Yes, which is a great band name. That's an incredible band name. I love it.
Right out of the 60s.
Yeah. So 96, 97 is when I personally was torn apart, like just literally standing at the Zoo Bar, just blown away by you guys. And I had an epiphany in the crowd, and I said to myself, they're hitting on all cylinders of why I'm going to school. And I had it all wrong. The closest thing I knew was to create a rock and roll spectacle would be to go to theater school. But they wanted me to do Shakespeare and dress in tights and stuff. And I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to create a show. That was my dream to do that. And you guys were the closest thing I'd ever seen to that. And so thank you so much for that. Because I knew it was possible at that point. I was like, these guys are local. They're Lincolnites, and it's totally possible.
And plenty of people in the Lincoln music scene kind of shook their heads at us, like they're real talented, but why are they doing all this silly crap?
Oh, that's what made it.
I'm just being honest. There were people that were like, but the turnout told us otherwise. Like our turnout.
You guys would sell out like 4 nights in a row. Like you guys were, I saw some old calendars recently, and it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Self-Righteous Brothers. All 3 nights.
The Christmas shows were epic, and I got to work on those songs with Brian. Brian and I really worked hard on some of those drinking carols, as we call them. That was extremely gratifying to write with him. I love those songs. And we would, that was before the capacity laws they kind of cracked down on capacity in Lincoln. The zoo, I really don't know that hardly anybody filled that room to the degree that we did. I know we broke Charlie Burton's long-standing record. It would just be literally sardines.
Yeah,
and
that's how I remember.
And everybody's smoking.
Everybody's smoking. Yeah. And I was shorter. I was short, so like beautiful women would walk by me, and it was great because half the time they would just nudge up against me, and 9 times out of 10 I would just get hit with enormous breasts, and I'm like, is this the Zoo Bar? This is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so wild. It was such an amazing time to see shows, and I was really young. In fact, I don't even think I was 21 at the time. Not to spill the beans, but the first show I ever sat outside, I was definitely not old enough, and we didn't try to go in, but it was my first date with my wife, Carrie. We sat and heard Luther Allison play outside, and that was his last show. We sat in front, and there's still we still have a photograph over our sink of us sitting out front, and it was a sold-out crowd inside. But man, incredible. So let's move into what the next step after LA.
Yeah, the Self-Righteous Brothers continued from 97 to 99, and I took a little break. I kind of had some pressure to stop playing music, which I won't go into, but I said I'd simmer down on playing and touring, and instead I made a record myself at Studio Q. And no, I'm sorry. Well, some of it was at Studio Q and some of it with Mike and AJ Mogus at Presto. But cool. I made that record called Scare the Fear Away, and then had a little band to sort of celebrate that for a while called Thirst and Howl, like Thirst and Howl.
Only man.
Like thirst and then an ampersand howl, Thirst and Howl. Oh, wow. And that was fun. That was Ted Alicio, Mike Keeling, Lori Allison sang some of the time with me in that, and Tom Harville. It was fun. We did that, and after that I played with Case Moranville. Now we're getting into like 2002. I again stopped playing because they couldn't tour, and it had a sort of a life, and it ended that Thirst and Howl. And so I had a young guy named Case Moranville who actually owned this house before us. We found out later, but he came into the pawn shop and he's just like, I really think you should be playing these songs of yours, and I'd like to do it with you. So we started to play. We'd do like a duo, and then it expanded briefly into a band, and then that didn't really work out. So that was a kind of a difficult time, say between July and October of 2003. I wasn't doing anything, and I mean, I missed it. So then here in late October, I get this call from Charlie Johnson.
Yes.
And he's just like, I think you could play rockabilly, and we need a guitar player. Wow. Would you play guitar with us?
And you had never played rockabilly before that?
Now, only a couple songs here and there, but I mean, I listened to it. I didn't mention, but when I was a kid, like between the ages of 5 and 8, when I put Jerry Lee Lewis on, I know that's rock and roll versus rockabilly perhaps, but when I would put like Great Balls of Fire on the turntable, I would literally just fall on the ground convulsing in this ecstatic state of rock and roll joy. So I had it in me, and I had played some songs in a very early band out of high school, some rockabilly, but mostly no. I had almost no experience. And so I told them, look, you're all friends of mine. I don't know if this will work out. I really don't know what you'll think of me, but I'll give it a try. And you have to promise and be honest with me. If it's not quite there, or it's not quite what you're looking for, or it isn't working, just tell me. But promise me we'll remain friends. But when we got together to rehearse in my pawn shop basement the first time, and it was all over. It was total chemistry. And Charlie, taught me a lot of things as far as ways to play rockabilly guitar that are sort of signature to that style that I wouldn't have known. My jazz chops came in handy on that swing stuff. That's for sure. But there's other stuff that because rockabilly is obviously this union of country and R&B, this crossroads. It's amazing. You'll have the more sort of hill country side of it where it's really I don't want to use the wrong word. Just unconventional. How about that? Just doing wild, weird, crazy stuff on the guitar, and then there's the other side of rockabilly that's like Bill Haley and the Comets, where it's like a lot of jazz chops. So I love that crossroads between wacky, weird, whatever I want to do, and actual bop type leads, if that makes any sense. But Charlie was hugely helpful to show me certain ways to play that were more signature to that style. And Gerardo wrote songs that he sounded like he just picked them out of the air from 1956. It was just like, huh. So Deuce was super fun standing up playing, and I had played with Deuce and the Self-Righteous Brothers. So I always used to joke the main reason I joined the Mezcal Brothers was just to play with Deuce again. And that band was just incredibly fun too, and still is.
Man, that's wild. I'm just looking at some of the comments. We've got some people joining in from different areas. So for some reason, I'm going to set this as public. It wasn't set public earlier on my page, but I'm going to do that real quick. Just 1 second. There we go. So yeah, make sure to share this around and comment in. We should be able to see comments as they come in. So this is awesome stuff. So remind me, so I don't know if you know this, but my father saw, and I need to get to the bottom of this someday with him. There was and I think that he saw the original version of the Mezcal Brothers. I think it was when Tony was in the band. There they come. There's a lot of comments coming in now. Wow, cool. Michelle Hodges from Oklahoma is tuning in. That's awesome. Great. And Brian Keeling's listening. Hi, Brian. We've been talking all night about you, brother. So the first version had Tony on drums, I believe. And my dad at that time, I'm not sure the relationship, but he was trying to promote them and trying to get them seen and whatnot. But
okay.
This would have been like before your time in the group.
Yeah.
And there was a few different versions before you came along, I believe, with some different players, and which were great. And I've seen some video of some of that.
Mark Simpkins was
Simpkins. Yes,
I can remember going to hear them at the zoo with Mike Keeling's wife, Ann Alicio, because Mike was in the studio with Drive By Honky recording. And so we just went and heard. So I remember us sitting there, just jaw dropped from Mark Simpkins playing. It was he could just take it to the outer limits. He's very talented.
Unbelievably talented, yeah. And there's a few NET videos of him playing with the band. And I want to say Marty Steinhausen was on bass. Originally, man. And Marty's groups blew me away early on too. And we should mention Radio King and what's the other one? Tijuana Gigolos, but there's the other one. Let's see, Radio King and forget the other band. Darlings. God, they were, and I think Joe played drums with them at that point too.
Yep.
Incredible.
And Tony.
Man. Yeah.
I mean, Lincoln's the musicians per capita in Lincoln and their creativity. I'm so proud of this community. For years, it's just been insane to not only be in bands, but to go hear other friends' bands and other musicians' bands and just totally get off on it. I feel really lucky to be here. I'm super glad I moved back from LA when I did, even though it was a hard decision.
Yeah, this community is very glad about it too, man. I mean, every band you're in, it seems like it's kind of like a new, like we're talking about it now, era. It's a new era of your life, and you just seem to one up it each time. It's really something to see. It's very cool. Yeah.
Well, I think with the Mezcal Brothers, one of the shining moments, because you were asking, like, can you pin it down?
Pin it down. Yeah.
When we got asked to go to Finland and Sweden for Midsummer and play these festivals, we played like in 2 nights. We played like South Central Finland, and then took a car to a train or a bus, I don't remember, to a ferry across the Gulf of what's it called? The Gulf of Bothwell. We finished playing in Finland at like 2:30 in the morning, and it's still light out. And it was out in the woods in this old hotel compound. It was just amazing. And then we just haul all the way, across the Gulf to Stockholm, and we get picked up and go up north till about 10 p.m. at night to get to this Enviken festival the next night of Midsummer, and just get out of the vehicle, spray down with bug spray. Because
who booked that? Who booked that?
Huh?
Who booked that?
Well, we were picked up by a Jungle Records in Pori, Finland, and I think that was the connection. But we have a dear friend, Alexandra. I met her in Lincoln before I was even in the Mezcal Brothers. That's a whole wonderful story. I wish we had time for all this, but she was like 20 years old, and she loved the band. She liked stuff I did before that, and she got to know me by coming in the pawn shop and she grew up on Rockabilly, so she really liked it when I joined the Mezcal Brothers, and she asked us, "Can I book you shows throughout Sweden?" And we let her, and it was super fun.
Oh man, that's super cool. Well, I've heard some great.
And you know, the Mezcal Brothers. I mean, we just released a new CD. In case anyone doesn't know, it's called Shaken.
Yeah,
it's called Shaken Dog, but it just came out. The first two that I played on, which would be the third and fourth record, Next Town and Go Go Rhythm, both received 5 stars from like Black Cat in Belgium. I mean, in Denmark, in Copenhagen. Which I mean, they're stingy with stars, and I'm just real proud of the work that we did together in those years, and I love the new record.
So real quick, the new record was done on vinyl, and Charlie had some magic with that. Was it done? I want to say like there was a limited pressing of vinyl.
It's kind of a souvenir piece. The vinyl.
Yeah.
It has a little trouble tracking and playing right, but it's really cool looking. So we'll certainly sign them, and you can get them to play. But it didn't turn out of the quality. The pressing, the quality of pressing that we wanted.
Oh, really?
And that's unfortunate. Yeah. But they are really cool looking, and so there's that. And the CD sounds great. We have it in mono or stereo.
Wow.
I really like it. I really like it in mono.
I got to get Charlie to put that on. It's not on Spotify at the moment, so we'll have to get him to do that, because I'm sure lots of people out there listening probably want to check it out. Where can they go to hear it? Is there anywhere online they can go to hear it?
I'm not positive on that. I think Bandcamp, maybe.
Yeah, maybe anybody out there, get a hold of me, and I'll get that information from Charlie, and we can share that. Yeah,
I think it's on Bandcamp.
Yeah, Go Go Rhythm's on Spotify though, and that's a great album, unbelievable.
We have some special guests on it that are really exciting. I mean, Dave Gonzalez played on it.
Oh, no way.
Record. Dave plays on a track, and Dave Biller, who's just ridiculous guitar player, also plays on it. And Josh Hoyer played, I think, Barry on it.
Oh, nice, man.
I think it's Barry. So there's a lot of fun stuff on that. And I did want to mention that, but I love the Mezcal Brothers, and I'm certainly honored that we're in that Hall of Fame. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
that was a fun night.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I'm happy that I was able to organize a bus for Lincolnites to make it up to Norfolk. And someday, now that the Hall of Fame has developed into a Performing Arts Hall of Fame, it's kind of expanded a little bit. We want to do a Lincoln show with you guys and sort of do not a reinduction, but just a night of commemoration, and do it here in Lincoln.
Love
that
it.
would be just to the Lincoln crowd. That would be really kick-ass. So
love it. Final chapter, and I'll try to be brief. I decided, working as an optician, I really needed to make a little bit more scratch. And I was, of course, playing with the Mezcal Brothers at this time. This is 2012 summer.
Yeah.
I remember consciously deciding, I think what I want to do is, instead of get some other job somewhere for weekends, I still play with the Mezcal Brothers, so that's not a great idea. I think I just want to play more music. I'm going to play more music and see what happens to make a little more scratch.
Sure.
I'm not kidding. It wasn't 1 or 2 weeks. Within the time of that conscious, silent decision I made in my head, Josh Hoyer calls me and says, I want to put together just a fun dance band. I think he was inspired somewhat by the Goodfoot down in Kansas City.
Nice.
Just like a fun soul R&B dance band. Maybe just play locally, regionally, but just make it really fun for people and just have a real good party. And I got Justin Jones and Brian Morrow, and would you want to play? And I'm just like, yep.
Planets aligned. There's a through line. There's a through line here. Not to interrupt you, but there's a through line with all of these chapters. And from what I know and what I've heard tonight, and that people listening probably too, is that Benji just has to play music, right?
Yeah,
that's it. That's what you're wired to do.
I loved my job as an optician, but music literally just took me out of it because I got so busy with it. Heartland Optical is an awesome place, and they worked with me. They totally supported my music, but it finally just got to a point in like 2015 where they're like, we had to restaff. You're gone all the time.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
So then it was just full-time music. Full-time music just sort of found me. But it is interesting that Josh called me right when I decided, within a week or two of that decision, to seek out more gigs and find some more music to play to see if I could, make life a little easier month to month. And Josh, so within a week of Josh asking that, Mike Keeling, Ted Alicio, they get a hold of me and they're like, remember how we always back in the Thurston Howell days, when we were releasing your CD, we'd always play some meters music, and we always said we wanted to have a whole band dedicated to that instrumental boogaloo funk. Well, we want to do it now. The time is now. And I'm like, oh my God, this also happened like within 2 weeks of that decision in my head. So I, of course, wanted to do that too. And Andy Fairburn, rest his soul, he came up with the name the Wondermonds.
Oh, nice, man. Did he come up with that? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yep, he. It's from the football player that we loved back in the '70s. Wonderful, terrific mom. So Andy grabbed that name out of the sky, and we loved it. So suddenly
we miss Andy. What a beautiful soul he was, man. And now that pandemic is sort of starting to shed its, ugliness, we hope to do a commemorative local show for him. That's in the works. So
I look forward to that.
Yeah, man, me too.
So Andy gave us that name. And so essentially from that late July, early August decision in my head to play more music, within about 3 weeks, I was starting to plan rehearsals for obviously Josh's band and the Wondermonds, two new, totally different bands, along with the Mezcal Brothers. So that was just a trip.
Well, the Mezcal Brothers were kind of not stuck to the once a month thing, but it kind of got that way. I mean, they were doing the once a month at the Zoo Bar, and they had their night. I know how that feels, where you just kind of want to go and do more. There's nothing wrong with that. But man, and the stuff you've done with Josh has been incredible. So tell us. I'm sure you could. Again, we could talk for an hour or two just about that. But
look, when we met upstairs at the Zoo Bar way back in the fall of 2012, getting ready for our first show, which was like the end of 2012, like the last few days, December 29th, I think, 2012.
Cool.
When we got up there in the rehearsal space and Josh started showing us these songs, I was blown away. I mean, songs like Every Day, Every Night, Make Time for Love, they were extremely good songs. Mm-hmm. And one more fun thing, when he asked me to join his band, I knew my answer was going to be yes, because, there's a lot of reasons you might join a band, but when your girlfriend is crazy about Josh Hoyer's voice, it's probably a pretty good move to if he asks you to join his band, you're probably not going to have too much friction for joining that band and being gone touring. So that's funny. She was crazy about his voice in Son of 76, and so, but yeah, when he started showing us these songs, I was just floored.
Yeah.
And real quickly, his idea to have a fun dance band that might play locally and then somewhat regionally, it just blossomed into a lot more than that. And that was, that wasn't his initial intention, but it just happened, and it happened quickly. So that was very exciting. And then here, now I was just honored to play with all these. I mean, so many great players in the history of Josh Hoyer and the Shadowboxers, and Josh Hoyer and Soul Colossal. I mean, just the talent that I've been honored to play with, and friendships that I've made is crazy. And the Wondermonds too. I mean, that music was extremely hard to learn. It still is. I mean, the bands like the Meters and Booker T, these are groups that we pull from heavily in the Wondermonds. Those instrumental funk tunes, they sound so easy. They just sort of play themselves and you go, oh yeah. But they're deceptively hard. So like Steve Cropper's guitar work is deceptively hard if you want to grab it and really play it right. So, I mean, I just was suddenly just playing all the time and learning all these different sets of music and totally different shows, still playing with the Mezcal Brothers. And of course the Wondermonds with Tom Harville, Ted Alessio, and Mike Keeling. I mean, we're just like you are with players that you've known and friends that you've had for so many years. We're just hand in glove. It was just, I really don't know how to express my honor and my gratitude to have these opportunities with such wonderful players and friends.
You've been surrounded by some good ones, man. No doubt about it. Really incredible stuff.
Josh Hoyer and Soul Colossal, we have this new record out.
Yep. Tell us about that real quick. Yeah, the code. Yeah. So you're on Color Red, which is like
Red.
Yeah, and it's like it's a great label. There's incredible bands on that label. Tell us about that.
Well, it's wonderfully exciting given we play a lot of new master sounds or some new master sounds in the Wondermonds, and then here Eddie Roberts, the guitar player and the new master sounds, has this label in Denver, and he wants us to record with him. I mean, personally in the studio there at the house. So I mean, the crossover is just crazy because I'm a big fan of his guitar playing. Wow. And the new record is just wonderful. It's called Natural Born Hustler, and it's grown folk music. Josh once called it grown folk music. It's just kind of really nice, mature.
I'm sorry, what did he call it? One more time?
Grown folk music.
Grown folk music, really?
Like grown up people, grown folk.
Oh, nice, man. That's kind of cool. Awesome.
It is. I think what he means is just not trying to throw everything into every song and sort of keeping it a little simpler. We've learned a lot about, and both he and I have learned a lot about being more concise if you want to. You don't have to, but when you want to be concise. And Ken Coomer from Wilco fame that produced the album 2 albums back out in Nashville really taught us a lot about how to squeeze a song together to get to its essence. And I think Josh really succeeded in making some wonderful songs that are more concise and well thought out, and not trying to blow, not every musician in every song just trying to blow you away, just playing soul music and R&B,
right.
Not in maybe a little bit simpler way as far as being concise, but certainly no less moving. I mean, very moving stuff. I'm really thrilled.
That's a really great thing to hear, because so many bands they're obviously good players, can just throw a bunch of noodles, everywhere, and it kind of devastates the song. And so that's actually refreshing to hear you say that, because you all are great players, that, but to craft a song beautifully is a totally different bag than just showing that you're a good player. That's really important. That's cool you said that. That's good. And that just came out like recently.
Yeah, it came out in the end of March, I think.
End of March. So that's up on Spotify. That's listenable, folks. So check that out. Natural Born Hustler, Josh Hoyer and Soul Colossal. That is awesome. So, man, it's incredible. This has been so fun. And like you say, from every single category and every single band you've been in, if you look at them as eras, we could talk for days. And that's what I love about you. Every time I see you, we've got something new to talk about, and it's just great. It's just awesome.
Well, I thank you for having me on, and the most important thing probably of all to say is that none of it would happen, and none of this artist life for me would happen if it weren't for people that like to go out and support live music and listen to it, and and patronize these cool clubs, not only in Lincoln but everywhere. I mean, it would be meaningless. So I mean, my biggest gratitude of all probably just has to go to the listening public that supports live music. That's the biggest thank you.
Totally. Brian Keeling says squirrel.
Oh, so real quick story there. Brian Keeling and I, no. Right. So during the pandemic, it was rather depressing, to be honest. I would look at my gear and it's just sitting there. And I really didn't feel like playing it that much because I'm spoiled by the connection between musicians versus just sitting alone playing guitar. I used to love to do that. But anyway, long story short, a friend of mine out in LA who I grew up with had written a book called The Frontman, where I was a primary character. It's a fantasy autobiography. Yes. And it was pretty well received. Yeah. So he had some young producers that wanted to shop it as a mini series, or I mean, as some sort of series. And
like a Netflix series, kind of,
yeah. So Ron wanted to know if I would. So the book is about him, but the fantasy part is that even though he's going to go down this road of being a doctor, he's really secretly drawn to being a frontman and singing. And the book's pretty funny in that regard. So and pretty cool. So it is fantasy and autobiographical. Some parts about me are totally fantastic because I can't really talk about them on. I mean, he makes me out to kind of a dirty dog, but I wasn't. Those are fantastic parts of his book, but it's hilarious.
That's so awesome.
Hooking up at my first cover band show when I'm in high school at a bar mitzvah, and that's just total fantasy. That never happened.
Right.
But anyway, long story short, I keep going longer. He asked me to write a song for that, and he had real specific parameters because the song actually occurs in the story.
The song is killer. You sent it to me. It's great. It's really good.
Thank you. I essentially was stumped for a long time, and it was go time. It was like the night I was supposed to meet with them on Zoom, and the producers out in LA and Ron, and I didn't have a song. I was just going to tell them it just hasn't hit me. But then Karmen, my sweetheart, she's just like, get out on the patio and write the freaking song. And I was just like, okay. So I recycled an old song that I still like in its original form, but it seemed perfect for this because of the way it works, and it could be there's a cycling part of it that could work right in the story, and it worked, and so they loved it. They just loved it, and one of the producer's uncles is his mentor. He produced "Stop Making Sense" by the Talking Heads.
Oh wow!
And
man.
for him to say he's real hard on his nephew too about everything when he brings a little script to him or something. But he just said that song is perfect. So I mean, for him to say that,
it is. It's good. It's I was very impressed by that. It's great.
The reason it's good is that I had Brian Keeling playing drums. So not to be confused with Mike Keeling, who's from the Wondermonds and the Millions. Brian Keeling, I've gotten to know since he moved here to Lincoln in 2015, 16?
Great, and a great drummer in his own right. Played with Shooter Jennings and Fuel and all these great killer bands. Like his track record's impressive. Great drummer.
Oh, exceptional. And he followed that song just like perfectly. And he was in our pod, he and Hannah were two people that we, were in contact with during this scary quarantine time, and we just decided we needed that. All of us did, and it was fun. So we developed quite a rapport of playing. He can read my ideas pretty well and knows what to do, and he was invaluable on that song. His pulse and pocket is just rocking and solid, and he also had some good ideas just in terms of, ways to deliver the drums on that song that were entirely his own. So I'm again grateful for the people that want to work with me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and you could definitely tell. And one thing before we go, and I know this is kind of out of left field, and this was the original idea for the show, it was conceptualized during the pandemic as something that my wife loves the Food Network and constantly watches shows on the Food Network and the Cooking Channel. And so many great people were cooking during the pandemic, and showing online their food dishes and everything. And you, one of those people, you and your lovely gal Karmen, make some incredible food together. So I would be silly not to mention it.
Well,
and if you want to go get her, you should drag her on the live stream right now, and we should say hello.
Let me be perfectly clear. She and I don't cook together.
Okay.
I might assist her a little bit, but
so does she cook for you? She cooks.
She cooks.
Oh, she cooks. Okay.
If I don't get too annoying with the way I slice or what have you, she may let me help. But she really is amazing in the kitchen with her dishes. She Carmenizes all kinds of different recipes to make them kind of grow. Yeah.
Does she want to say hi? Does she want to say hi right now?
Go
get her.
She's wrong.
Go pull her on here. People out there, comment in. Who wants to say hi to Karmen? I want to say hi to Karmen. She's a beautiful soul. I love her. This has been fun, hasn't it, folks? Give us a thumbs up on the chat and let us know that you're listening. This has been very cool. And don't forget to throw a few bucks to the Hall of Fame, PayPal or Venmo. Did you get her? Oh,
yeah, I think so. She's coming.
She's coming. Sweet.
No, seriously, her dishes this through the pandemic.
There she is. Slithering. The slithering Karmen. What's up, girl?
Hi, I was just putting dishes away from cooking.
Cooking with Karmen and Benji. This is welcome to Dishin with Musicians. We've been dishing all night long, and in our own way, and talking about your amazing cooking.
She made like a cauliflower coconut milk soup most recently that was just killer.
Oh my! Wow!
Thank you.
I think you need to take place in our my local idea for charity, and maybe for KZUM. I want to do a fundraiser where it's like a Top Chef competition. Wouldn't that be fun to have like local people in the community participate?
Yeah.
And then we could get the food donated from some local farmers or whatever, and then just like do a big thing. Wouldn't that be badass? I think that'd be some fun. Yeah.
That's a really cool idea.
Karmen, you've been posting some really yummy stuff, like soup. And if I'm not mistaken, my memory, are you guys on the Cooking for the Pandemic group? Is that where?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I've seen some of your stuff. Yeah.
Eating through the pandemic?
Eating through is that what it is?
Eating through the pandemic, yeah.
Actually started by my ex-wife.
Yeah, it started by his ex-wife, and I was
invited
on the post.
Cool.
Elisa. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Yeah, man, and it's such a great group on Facebook, and now it's blossomed to just thousands of people. It's really something else. But
it is.
Yeah, it's yummy.
I love your idea for KZUM. What you might do is just have special recognition awards. Maybe just instead of like Top Chef and we have such a winner culture, it might be fun to just give special awards to different people.
Good idea, and spread it out. Yeah, not really have a winner because they're all really great. Yeah, that's what I look at some of those. Like when Carrie watches these shows, I'm like, that other dish looks so great. There's no way they're going to give all like $10,000 to this other person. Like, you're totally right. Like, there needs to be.
I feel the same way about bands and music. Like, how can you have the best of this?
The Grammys and any Oscars, you name it. There's no way.
Just recognitions, special recognitions.
How are you going to judge an acting performance against another one?
Although I will say, I was I was given an award by James Fleege for being in the top 15 shredders of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, nice. Take that and run with it, man. Well, I hope Karmen keeps up her awesome cooking and her goody town yummies. You guys are so special. And Carrie and I miss seeing you guys downtown and out and about. And thankfully, the lights at the end of the tunnel, we can finally start being humans again and being ourselves out at live venues and playing music. And
I look forward to it.
Just hanging out and partying and just being real. So much love, you guys. This has been awesome. Yes, back at you.
Thank you, Mike.
Carrie, I'm sure Carrie's probably, if not watching now, she'll watch it later. But much love to you guys. Benji, you're a great soul. Karmen, you're a great soul.
Much
and
love to you.
The history of what you've given Nebraska music is unbelievable. And so thank you guys for joining me tonight. Fantastic stuff. All right, y'all. Don't forget to donate to the Hall of Fame so we can keep doing cool stuff like this. And let's do it live, Benji. Let's play a live show soon, brother. I'll talk to you soon, guys. Have a good night, y'all. All right. Adios.